everyone, this is John from Bell Wine Cellars. We're here up on Mount Veeder at 1100 feet at our famous Longtable Vineyard. This is a wonderful site. It is the source of our Clone 169, which we released, or the inaugural vintage was the 2018, and also a new up and coming one, Clone 191. Mountain site, this is more or less a southeast exposure, so it gets a lot of sunlight and tends to be an early Cabernet site. Water is a challenge up here. It is, there's a reservoir, but we've been in drought for a while, so it is a challenging spot to farm in. Last year we only got 1.4 tons of fruit from this site, while the normal or peak would be somewhere between 7 and 9 tons. So it can be challenging sometimes. This year we had a couple good rains in December and another one in March, so looking okay for water, and I have high hopes that we'll be able to get all the fruit that we need from these main 2 blocks. You know, mountainside farming is tough, very low yields. The clusters are very small. For those of you who have come to the winery and seen our little show and tell about the different clones of Cabernet, we always talk about Clone 6 being the one with really small clusters that are sparse and very small berries. Up here, everything looks like Clone 6. They're all very small clusters, loose clusters, and very small berries just from the stress on the vines. The soils are very thin, and the drainage is, it happens very easily. So the vines are stressed a lot, and that creates very powerful grapes, very concentrated, because that's the vine's response to those harsh conditions, which works in our favor for winemaking, of course. But wonderful quality off of these blocks. It's funny, I was just reminding myself, looking at the soils, how much sand there is in these soils, and you know, reminds one that a lot of this was sea bottom at one point, before all the tectonic activity brought up the mountains as we know them. You know, millions of years ago, this was probably an ocean bottom, and you can still see it in some of the sandy soils mixed with some of the other soils that you would expect from a mountain area that are, you know, granitic breakdown and so on. So yeah, a really special spot, and I always love coming up here. It's so peaceful, and the only neighbor is Hess Collection. They've got a lot of vineyards up here, but this is a neat spot, kind of a little valley of its own. So yeah, looking forward to this season. We'll show you a little bit of the grapes in a minute. We're here in Block 1 at Longtable Vineyard. Block 1, also known as Clone 169 at the winery. One of my favorite blocks and one of our best wines, I think. We are here at the tail end of veraison, where the grapes start that final ripening cycle, and they start the color change from green to the dark color we know as a red grape, or black in some ways. And they also start to plump up a little and soften. But as I mentioned, these clusters are still pretty small, and they're, you know, the berries are spaced apart. They're very sparse, which is great. It allows for good penetration of light and air, prevents any mold. Yeah, just wonderful for concentration. And these clusters, even though they're Clone 169, they almost look like Clone 6 because of that growing in the mountains here. I mentioned veraison. It's a time where it's a good time to find clusters that are a little too far behind. They haven't colored up, and we don't want that. We want even ripening. And this is the time that we would catch these clusters that are a little too far behind. This one's a little too far behind, so this one would be dropped. So you can imagine, you know, the yields already are small, and then we're pulling extra clusters off, but that's what it takes to farm in the mountains. It's merciless thinning and, you know, cultivation of these vines to make sure that we get the quality we need. And in the end, we usually end up between 1 and 1.5 tons per acre, which is a pretty small yield, where on the valley floor you can get as high as 4.5, maybe even 5 tons an acre in some spots, and have wonderful wine off those as well. But this is a fraction of that. So every little bit counts up here, and the farming is challenging, but is very rewarding when the wines come out nicely. All right, we're signing off from Longtable Ranch here on Mount Veeder, and over the next few weeks we'll be cruising out to some of our other vineyard sites, keeping an eye on the fruit for me for harvest, and also to share some of the little quirks and specialties from each site. We'll be visiting Coombsville in the southeast corner of Napa. It's a little cooler. Very blue fruits can come from that area. And then we'll be heading up probably to Rutherford and even Howell Mountain to take a look at some of our clones, like Clone 6 on Howell Mountain and Clone 337, Clone 7 up in Rutherford. The beautiful Rutherford bench, and the farming is exquisite, so can't wait to share some of that. We'll see you next time.